Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Spring Cleaning for Your Mind, Body, and Spirit. My name is Julia Marvin, and I'll be your moderator. And I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Sarah Greenbaum, who's a clinician on our Colorado Spirit team. Before we get started, a little bit about Colorado Spirit. Colorado Spirit is Jefferson Center's community-driven program aimed at providing COVID-19 disaster relief and mental health support across Colorado, with a focus on Jefferson County, Clear Creek County, and Gilpin County. We offer free, confidential, and virtual help, and our trained crisis counselors are here to listen and provide support around the feelings that life during the pandemic may bring up, such as worry, sadness, hopelessness, or anger. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about spring cleaning, but not in the traditional sense. You know, spring is in the air, and with it comes a new sense of hope and renewal. And it's definitely been a bit of a tough winter, and many of us have been feeling the effects of a year of the pandemic. So as we shed the winter blues and head into what is hopefully the final stages of COVID-19, this time of transition is an opportunity to make positive changes to your physical and mental health. Today, Sarah's going to walk us through some ways to start those healthy habits, let go of the past and regrets, cultivate creativity to have positive mental health, and also improve your overall well-being. Before I hand the mic over to Sarah, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover about the presentation. First, the webinar and slide deck will be available after the live session, and we'll be emailing those links to you. I would also encourage you to visit our website at jcmh.org, where we have more resources along with blog posts related to this topic and information about other upcoming webinars we're hosting. Please keep your microphones muted and turn off your video during the presentation. And you'll also want to change your Zoom view to speaker mode to have the best viewing experience. Next, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. So if you have a question for Sarah, please feel free to send it through the chat at the bottom of your player. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session, and if we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. And last, we'd like to encourage you to follow us on our social networks and share the recording of this webinar and other information about Jefferson Center. So without further ado, Sarah, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julia. Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to have you here. As Julia mentioned, with spring in the air, we've kind of got the smell of fresh flowers, cut grass, and pre-summer routines that will start to begin soon once all this snow dries up. So with that said, spring is kind of always a phase of renewal, fresh starts, and new beginnings for many. It prompts us to want to refresh our surroundings and clean up. One ritual we often think of is spring cleaning. For many, spring cleaning consists of washing the drapes, shampooing the carpets, refreshing and reseeding planters, and it's a time for regrowth and renewal in our physical space. But what about our mental space? Amidst all of this focus on cleaning things out, spring is a great time to do a little spring cleaning of some of the mental dirt we accumulate in our minds and our hearts as well. As the pandemic has required everyone to spend more time at home and with themselves, decluttering some of our old habits and rejuvenating positive endeavors, such as creative projects, will help us start off the new spring season refreshed and ready to improve our overall well-being. So in addition to sprucing up our physical space, this is a time where we should and can give some attention to renewing our mental health. So today we will be talking about some strategies and tips for decluttering and rejuvenating our mental health. So the first strategy I have for decluttering is to straighten out your priorities. Ask yourself, what's most important to me? What's most important for my physical or my mental health? The health of my family, my relationships. Taking time to answer these questions can help reduce decision fatigue and eliminate the mental clutter that comes with trying to decide where to place our time and energy. So the tip that you'll see here on the slide is to create a to-do list of short-term and long-term goals. Get the clutter out of your mind. Write down all those running lists, hopes, goals, and things that you think about frequently that have been on repeat in your head. Put them on paper. Categorize them. Try prioritizing them. This may vary from reconnecting with an old friend you haven't seen in a while, to taking more time to enjoy your cup of coffee, or maybe you've been wanting to start saving for something, a big trip once the pandemic starts to clear, saving for your kiddos' college funds, tickets to a show you've been dying to see, or maybe you want to splurge on the good brands at the grocery store. Think of dreams or goals you've been wanting to achieve. It does not matter how big or small. Putting them on paper and making a plan for one or two of them can give you a sense of purpose and guide you toward that desired path, all while decluttering a bit. Tackle projects you've been putting off so you have more time for these goals. We all have that mental list of tasks or projects we really need to tackle. Start your mental health spring cleaning by writing these down as well. Look at your calendar and schedule a time to complete these. Maybe you spend your next lunch break scheduling all those appointments for you or your family that you need to do, and your next Saturday off, knock them out. Go to the dentist, go to that eye doctor appointment. The next strategy I suggest is to drop old habits. Take the time to pick an area of your life that has an impact on your mental health or is counterproductive to your well-being. Some of the more common ones I tend to hear are related to diet, exercise, and spending. Make an effort to replace the habit with a healthier option. Sometimes when we eat, it's an emotional release that we need. Maybe we feel pent up due to the pandemic, so we overeat or eat something that we've told ourselves we wouldn't, so we can feel like we're kind of breaking free. Or during the work week, instead of that 3 p.m. third soda, maybe we switch to carbonated water. Or instead of that sugary snack, we eat a piece of fruit. Because diet-related habits are some of the most frequent that I hear, another suggestion I have here is to avoid crash diets and maintain a steady intake of a variety of foods. Maybe try one new recipe a week or a month. Or one of my favorites, eat a rainbow of colors. Another example I hear a lot is relating to having an off day or a lazy day. So instead of lazy Sundays, for example, maybe switch to lazy Sunday afternoon after a brisk walk. The tip I have for these old habits is to put it in writing. Write down that old habit. Think about the challenges you might encounter as you try to replace it with a better one. For every challenge, write down one strength you have that will help you overcome the challenge. Keep these somewhere where you can look at them when the challenge arises. Use it as a reminder that you do possess the strength to overcome the challenge, and you can still drop this old habit. Also, think of a way to celebrate your hard work when you replace this old habit. Maybe after a month of only lazy Sunday afternoons, let yourself rest one Sunday. My next tip for decluttering is to spend time with your mental space. Spring is a good time to also let go or reframe any of those negative thoughts you might have. Sometimes we stand in our own way. Our attitude, motivation, and potential may be hindered by a lack of confidence or negative self-talk. We don't express confidence in our abilities and tell ourselves we can't, or we're not good enough, or we don't have time. This can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So think about, is your mental space one of the challenges that you will face when you straighten out your priorities? My tip here, similar to the last one, is to put it in writing or try journaling. Try writing down these thoughts, worries, fears, or feelings that are linked to negative self-talk. This helps us become more aware of these types of thoughts and release them from our mind, allowing for us to declutter even further. Putting things on paper can help you let go, put things into perspective, or even change our way of thinking about things. Journaling daily or regularly is a great way to practice this. And finally, to declutter, I do suggest spending a little time with your physical space. Your mental space is very important. So is your physical space. It's an old cliche, clean house, clear mind. But there's more wisdom to that old cliche than it may seem. Things that take up physical space take up mental space. When we have a closet full of junk, we waste brain power on where to store things rather than more important matters. More stuff means more things to take care of. The effort spent in repairing and cleaning takes up time and resources. Eventually, we might find ourselves caught in a constant state of having to get stuff done for our stuff, rather than having just free time to relax and focus on other priorities. My first tip here is to clean space by space. Think about a space that needs your attention most. Is it a storage space loaded with things that might go to charity? Is it that closet of coats that you never wear, your kids have outgrown? Is it a desk drawer where everything just gets tossed? Start there. Once you pick a space, organize and clear that clutter. Try separating clutter into 4 categories: trash, giveaway, store, and put away. For your put away category that you are keeping, we just need to put it onto shelves, into drawers, wherever it may be. Think to yourself before you decide to put it away. Is it meaningful, and does it have a use? Find one space for this stuff. Then only allow yourself that much stuff. So maybe you put that stuff in one drawer or on that one shelf. If you still can't part with something once that area is filled, store it. If you find that you haven't pulled it out from storage by next spring, maybe it's time to give it away or throw it away. My next tip is to get the household involved. Get your partner, your children, your roommate involved. This can help spread out the workload, and talking with someone as you declutter can help you reason with how to categorize your stuff. If you're the only one in the household, try breaking your house into smaller areas so that you can clean one area at a time and not feel overwhelmed. This is a great time to also tackle the seasonal chores. Incorporate these into your routine so they aren't left on that ongoing to-do list in your mind. Clean the grill or patio off. Store the winter clothes or decor. Giving your space a refreshed look can bring new, motivating energy into your environment. And lastly, use this time to consider those old habits and to replace them with new ones. Maybe you find what works and doesn't work from these tips after you try practicing them for a bit. Maybe you help your kids or work with your partner or roommate and use this time as an opportunity to teach or to learn how to do certain household tasks that they or you usually don't do. This is an opportunity to delegate or distribute the workload and negotiate, then establish new chores and responsibilities in your house. One of my favorite ways to do this is to have my partner separate his laundry before I even touch it for the laundry. He just throws things into his whites, his darks, and his lights for me, and this saves me time gauging when the laundry needs to be done and separating the load later on. Now that we've talked about some strategies and tips for decluttering, let's talk about rejuvenating. After all, spring is all about rejuvenation. First, move your body. One of these days, this Colorado weather will start permitting for us to get in some good spring time outside. We've heard the importance of movement 1,000 times by now. The key to better mental health, though, resides in maintaining good physical health. If you're suffering from a mental illness like depression, maintaining physical health can seem exhausting and impossible. However, despite how difficult it may feel, taking care of your physical health does benefit your mental health. Small actions, such as taking your dog on a walk on a sunny day, stretching while you're seated, all adds to being healthier overall. My tips here are to integrate movement into your everyday routine. So maybe you just stretch between meetings or while you wait for your pot of coffee to brew in the morning. Maybe you take a quick walk to the mailbox and back every afternoon. But setting aside this time to actively get outside or move your body can do wonders. I also suggest trying to maintain regular bedtimes and wake times. This is challenging for many right now because for many of us, we are working from our bedrooms too. One thing that may help is trying to limit screen time before bed and use your actual bed only for sleeping. The next strategy for rejuvenating yourself is to seek and maintain positive relationships and habits. As you declutter, consider what is working in your life. Nothing feels better than a good belly laugh or engaging in that activity that you feel is life-giving. Find those friends that keep you laughing and feeling supported, and nurture those relationships. Maybe you're thinking that some of your past friendships have gone to the wayside because time has passed or because we've been in a pandemic for the last year. Try to take steps to revitalize these friendships. These relationships don't have to be with people, and you can double dip with relationships and habits. For example, if you're like me, I love spending time with my dog. So I try to intentionally spend more time with her, and more specifically, walking her. This helps me maintain our relationship. My dog is always happy with it, and I'm moving my body. This also helps me to discard my habit of skipping my daily walk because I'm sitting in front of my computer all day working. My tip here is that as you write down or journal old habits when you're decluttering, think about what is working for you. What are some good habits you already have? Who or what makes you feel good already? Think about how to spend more time with those activities or with those people. Put this in writing as well, so you can remind yourself of ways you can work with what's working. Next, renew your spirit. A few minutes of meditation, gratitude, prayer, or deep breathing is great for mental cleansing. These relaxation strategies can help you unwind, stay in the present, ignite your inner spirit, and reduce the negative energy and thoughts that might weigh you down. Some tips here are to practice mindfulness. Spring is a great time to take stock of our mental state. Reflecting and being aware of our thoughts and feelings helps us to be better prepared to handle life stresses and to be more in tune with ourselves. Practice gratitude, but try it out loud. So while decluttering some of those negative thoughts that we talked about earlier, now is a great time to refocus on things that make us grateful. It could be living sober, friends, therapists, good doctors, maybe just great weather, maybe the relationships we have. Speak these things into existence. If you think it's a beautiful day, or you're grateful for your health, your ability to pay bills, your family's time together, share that with a loved one, or say it out loud to yourself. And lastly, sweep away the self-criticism. This takes a lot of practice, but it's doable. Start by swapping negative self-talk with positive phrases, like, I'm doing my best. Try to remind yourself that life is about progress, not perfection. And finally, one of my personal favorites is to find a creative project. The word creativity often invokes visions of the ingenious inventor, the savvy entrepreneur, the imaginative writer, the artist splashing paint all over the canvas. These images do represent a certain kind of creativity. And some of you may have that amazing creativity. I do not. But the good news is anyone can cultivate creativity. Do you ever think that being creative is an ability you either have or you don't? I do. Think again. There's no such thing as becoming or being more creative. You are already a creative being. Our brains are naturally wired for creativity, to explore and to question the world around of us. And creativity can act as a release and support your overall well-being. Creativity can declutter and rejuvenate at the same time. But just like grass, creativity needs space to be planted, where it can be routinely watered so that it can get greener and healthier. My tips here are to find and make space to plant your creativity. As you declutter your physical space, make space to plant it. Maybe now that you've cleared out that garage or desk area, you can finally knock out some of those projects that have been on your to-do list. These cleaned up areas can be a great space to plant creativity. Maybe you built that shelf to house stuff that needs to be stored. Maybe you scrapbook those photos that have been chaotically living in your desk drawers for longer than you can remember. The next tip I have here is to start with the outcome. Spark your imagination here. Visualize what your creative space looks like or what you want to create. Put it on paper. Write it in that journal. Engage in conversation, or whatever works best for you to consider the outcome that you're hoping for. Try asking yourself, what kind of message do I want to be received from this project? Or what kind of feedback am I hoping for? Or what do I want this to look like? Or what purpose do I want this project to serve when I'm done? Sometimes, starting with the end in mind helps us naturally get into our creative flow. The next tip I have for you is to tune into your inner child. Some of you may be wondering how you are a creative being. Imagine the ingenuity and perceptibility of children. Children are a never-ending source of creativity and imagination. This is largely due to the fact that as children, we begin to explore and understand the world around us through constant questioning of our surroundings. As we get older, our life experiences begin to shape the way we think about the world. We start to put barriers up in our minds about what we think is possible. And while it can be easier said than done to tap into this childlike creativity, it shows that we begin our lives with the power to use our imagination for our creative benefit. We just sometimes lose those skills over time or forget how to access them. Try to tap into those memories. Think about what you were like as a child. Talk to someone that knew you as a child. Did you like problem solving? Did you like building? Did you like playing, creating imaginative sceneries, role playing? Go back to those memories. And finally, make it a routine. This might sound contradictory to creativity because it's all about inspiration, right? But intentionally making time and space for creativity is actually the key. The grass doesn't just get green from the occasional heavy watering. It gets greener from regular tending. Creativity is the same. It needs intentional, routine watering. So as we let go of 2020 and start to shed these winter blues one of these days in Colorado, we can use this time of seasonal transitions as an opportunity to declutter, rejuvenate, and make positive changes for our overall well-being. And we will open the floor now for questions or
Great.
comments.
Sarah, thank you so much. That was a lot of really great information. And I know that I found it valuable, and I'm sure that others did as well. So we have gotten a couple of questions. So the first one is, how can you identify bad habits? And what if you are unaware that a habit is bad or negative for your mental health or well-being?
I would suggest starting by just being aware of your habits in general and not labeling them. Maybe a habit is you drink a cup of coffee every day, and sometimes you realize that by journaling that you do that every day and journaling your day throughout the day, maybe you realize that cup of coffee is causing a crash later. So just by tapping into the awareness before you even label them can help you start to determine if something is beneficial to your physical and mental health first.
That's a great idea. Yeah, about making it not labeling it, just letting it be, and that's a great idea. Our next question is, you talked a lot about journaling and writing, and so what tips do you have for people who struggle with writing or have writer's block?
That's a great question. I think with struggling to write or writer's block, what I like to advise folks is to just start. One thing that I often notice is if folks have that beautiful journal that they feel like they have to write the perfect thing in so that they don't waste this perfect journal, or if they use lined paper, they'll get kind of trapped in feeling like they can't write or brainstorm because it has to be perfect before it's even on paper. So I would suggest one, using plain paper so you don't feel like things have to be organized. And two, buying the materials or using the materials that don't make you feel like you have to put something down that's perfect. So don't buy those perfect journals if you're not going to write in them until you're ready. So just getting it on paper is kind of the first step, and starting by practicing awareness with maybe why you're not writing is also a good suggestion.
Great, thank you. Okay, so another question we got is, how does how does someone get to a point where they like themselves? Is it all of these steps? I struggle with self-esteem a lot.
I can relate to that. I'd say these steps are a good starting point, but I always like to encourage folks who struggle with self-esteem to focus on balance. So maybe for every time you notice a negative comment or self-talk, that some sort of negative self-talk that you give yourself, write down something positive. So it's, man, I really feel like I'm aging today. You can write down, but I still have my hair color, or I still have the ability to carry out the physical things that I enjoy. So for every kind of like negative self-esteem point that comes up in your mind, try and balance it with something positive. And hopefully that will start to naturally happen, even if you're not writing them down. So if you're out and about in the world and you um, suddenly feel like you're not confident about your body or about your anything about you that's causing the self-esteem kind of doubt, then hopefully the positive reinforcement will start to naturally kick in if you're intentionally practicing it earlier on.
Thanks, Sarah. And then our next question is, what if we find it hard to fit something like being creative or journaling or any of these other things into our routine, or we find that we don't have the time?
Yeah, great question. I think that time is often the biggest barrier to creativity or making any sort of change. And like we kind of mentioned earlier, I'd encourage you to figure out what you're already doing and how you can maybe just take an extra couple minutes there. Like, for example, a lot of times I will cultivate my creativity when I'm doing the dishes just by listening to music. Or I'll pick a recipe intentionally that's going to take an extra 10 minutes, and I'll create to use that new recipe as a creative release. So think about things you're already doing where you can kind of incorporate it already. Maybe you're washing your hands or shampooing your hair or doing a household chore, and you're listening to a gratitude exercise, or you're practicing that positive self-talk.
Great, thank you. And then I think we have time for one final question, and it kind of fits into what you were just talking about a little bit. But do you have any suggestions? This person says, I'm not a creative person, and so do you have suggestions for for where I could start to look for creative or fun things to do?
Yeah, I have lots of suggestions for this because I also face this a lot. I think sometimes it's natural to put ourselves in kind of a creativity box where we feel like we have to be um, that creative writer or that artist behind a canvas, or kind of those more typical ways that we view a creative person. And it doesn't have to be that. It can be your creativity could be making that perfect Excel spreadsheet at work. So just kind of like realizing what you're already finding yourself naturally getting into like a flow with in whatever your routine is. Maybe it's making the bed perfectly or arranging all the silverware in the drawer. So kind of think of ways that you're already using your mind to put order and purpose to something, because that within itself can be creative. And then my second kind of tip would be to network. So use Meetup. Meetup is a great app that you can use in the Denver metro area. Um, there's lots of great ideas there, like painting classes, or you can go to your local school and donate chalk, and then you can admire all the chalk um, portraits that kids draw that weekend. So networking, Meetup is great. Maybe you ask a grandchild, or maybe you ask your daughter, or your son, or your partner, or your neighbor, and you can start gardening with them, or you can enjoy a glass of wine and listen to music that sparks your imagination with them. So once the pandemic kind of starts to clear, I would suggest networking a little bit more.
Great. Yeah, one of the participants said the first step is to stop saying that you're not creative. I know I'm,
Yes.
I know I do that as well, but I think that's a great point about it being, that it could be anything. It doesn't have to be what we think of in that creative box. It could be a whole bunch of different things. So I guess we do have one more question, but how do we know a part of that spring cleaning isn't to seek therapy if we haven't had it for a while? How do we know when it's time to get help from like a therapist?
I think if you're revisiting that question over and over and over again, or you feel like you're not making headway with whatever kind of is going on in your life, it's time to seek help. So if you find yourself revisiting the same problems over and over again, or you feel emotionally like your response to those problems or to this kind of like mental health spring cleaning isn't getting resolved, there's absolutely no there should never be any hesitation in just asking someone for a little help. It's completely normal to need someone to kind of give you a little push or a little accountability, or to just kind of say like, let's brainstorm another way to approach this problem.
And Sarah, your team is a great place to start with that, right? If people wanted to talk more, how great.
Yeah, great question. Our team is a great resource for this. And we do provide free and confidential services. I think, like Julia mentioned earlier, this can look like really brief one-on-one counseling. So this is going to be solution oriented, and it's usually only several sessions. But we're happy to kind of work with you and brainstorm with you some ways to come up with solutions to what you're already facing. We can do some psychoeducation. We have all sorts of like fun worksheets that you can use to help your mental health, but also be creative. And the best way to get a hold of us is on the screen. And our phone number I can also read out loud as well as drop in the chat. And if you call us at any time during business hours, I will be who answers the phone, and I'm happy to talk you through things one-on-one, or send you over to one of our licensed clinicians who may be a better fit too. And that is our contact information.
Great. Sarah, thank you so much again This has been a really helpful webinar. I just want to remind everyone that no matter what you're facing in life, like if you're feeling overwhelmed, worried, or stressed, Jefferson Center is here for you, and we are open, accepting new clients, and accessing care is easier than ever with virtual appointments. So you can visit our website at jcmh.org or follow us on Facebook for more resources and information. And you can also reach us by calling 303-425-0300. Thank you so much and have a great day.